First thing I want before even we start this lesson, I'm just expressing my opinion. You don't need to agree with it, okay? But if I would go back to my career and I would try to understand how it will look like, I want to explain to you, and I did that when I recorded last year the What Matters series, and I said this. Career, for me, is not built by one piece. You know, imagine that some people think that they go from 0 to 100 means absolutely successful, doing something like that. They put one massive piece, then they put another one massive piece, then a third one, then a fourth one, and then they have it done with A, B, C, and D. Imagine that A is your degree, B is your language, whatever. I cannot see a career progression like that. How do I see a career progression? Much more like this, from 0 to 100, like this. This tiny brick, and then this tiny, another one that is tiny here, another big one, another one, and then after zillion of bricks, you have the wall. If you ask me, okay, what was the most significant thing you did to build your project manager career? I cannot say to you. I don't know if it were the books, if it was my volunteer work at PMI, if it was, I would say, all my credentials. I think I have more than 20. If it was my master and my PhD that I did with topics related to project management, if it was my work at the UN, if it was my work at Brightline, if it was my life as an entrepreneur at ANC in Brazil, I'm not competent enough to understand a single driver. So don't believe that a single driver will be, or two drivers. It's a hard work. And why I'm explaining this in a lecture that was supposed to be courses, certification, and degree? Because I see courses, certification, and degrees something like the foundations of this wall. This wall, imagine that this is your fortress that will bring the value of who you are to the society and to the organization. So most of the time you have, I would say, your degree here, and then you have an extension course here, another one here, then a credential here, then something here. Every single thing adds up. Of course, after you have a certain number of things here, maybe other things become more interesting to do related to your experience, international, whatever. So going back to the journey, if you take a look here on the tree, the junior, the PM, and the senior PM, what we can see here is that things become more or less relevant when you move to the process. And this is exactly what I'm talking here. After you having a good degree, maybe, just maybe, a second one will not add the same amount of value. For example, I have, I would say, many credentials. And of course, the first one and the first credential I had that made the most difference in my life, I cannot deny at all, it was the PMP. I did in 1998 or 99. So something like more than 20 years ago. And at that time, this was, I would say, a big, of course, I'm not even talking about, it was not the piece, but it was one piece. But then I'm getting other credentials, and most of the time, I get credentials, even after, I would say, considering myself as a senior project manager. I still do that. And why I still do that? Because this helps me to keep myself updated. But honestly speaking, I don't believe anyone will hire me, will increase my chances of being hired because I have, instead of 21 credentials, I have 22. I don't believe, maybe you will disagree, but I don't believe on that. But the first credentials you have, they are very relevant. They are extremely relevant for what you do. And the first courses, the same. The first courses will shape your mindset and will give, I would say, this solid foundation. So what you need to do, if you are a junior, you really need to invest time, more than money. I know that money is an issue, but if you are on the junior side, money cannot be your driver. Getting experience and building your profile is what should be your main concern. And this is why, for example, you should do courses. And today there are so many very cheap courses, free courses that you can just attend. Some credentials, the most relevant ones. You know, if you want really, this is absolutely my personal opinion, if you want to go for project management, I'm pretty confident you need to know, I would say, the main methods. You need to probably have the PMP. I would go for it. You need to go for a Scrum credential, okay, or a Scrum Master or a Discipline Agile. You need to go to something around enterprise agility on the safe side. You should study Kanban. You should study Lean. If you are living in Europe, it's something to consider the Prince 2 credential. I got all of them. And also you can use the competence baseline of IPMA that drives most of this competence aspect as also your credential. I finished mine on IPMA A early last year, a couple of months ago. So why I'm saying this? Because all of this will build, there is nothing that is irrelevant. There is absolutely nothing. Everything adds to the top of bringing you to move. So all degrees, credentials. So what is important here? If you're a junior, really, look for courses that will expand your knowledge. Courses on complex project management, courses on Lean, courses on Kanban, courses on PMBOK, whatever. I'm not saying my course. No. Just go on YouTube and learn if you want. But you really, really need to get a grasp on these methods. And the credential for you is very relevant. And I always tell people one thing. If you are a junior PM or a PM, credential is something that makes your CV change the pile. And sorry for being, I would say, so contundent on what I say. It's most of the time companies receive thousands of CVs and they need to do some screening. These will not make you to get the job, but there is a chance that they will say, okay, this person has this, let's move him or her to a different pile. Let's shrink the pile by using this criteria. And with that, you will be in. And not at all, as you saw here, I'm saying that by just being a PMP, you will have all the competences of being a program director that will, I would say, manage the James Webb Telescope. It will not happen that way. It will not. It requires you a massive experience to get to there. But at least on these first steps, you will have an extremely helpful path for you, I would say, to give these first steps.